3 months ago, my fiancé convinced me to travel abroad to find myself, before our wedding. Last night, I returned unannounced to surprise him, only to find him hosting a lavish party where a stunning woman wore my family heirloom necklace. When our eyes met across the room, I saw panic flash across his face. Then he walked over, kissed my cheek, and introduced me to everyone as just an old friend from college. That's when I realized the diamond ring burning in my pocket wasn't the only thing about to shatter tonight. The New York skyline welcomed me home with its familiar glow, but nothing else felt familiar anymore. 3 months in Italy should have been our pre-wedding adventure. Instead, it became my solo journey after Logan insisted I needed to grow as an individual before becoming a wife. I'd resisted initially, but his persistence wore me down. "It's only 3 months, Sophia. It'll make our bond stronger," he'd promised, eyes earnest as he booked my one-way ticket to Florence. I clutched my carry-on tighter as the taxi navigated through Manhattan traffic. Logan's text had grown increasingly sparse over my time away, from hourly check-ins to daily updates, then weekly formalities, until they dwindled to vague responses to my own messages. Something had shifted. I could feel it even across an ocean. That's why I came home 2 weeks early. Surprise him, my friend Lucia had suggested during our farewell espresso in Florence. Remind him what he's missing. The taxi pulled up to our high-rise and I paid the driver with the last of my converted currency. Logan had promised to transfer money to my account weekly, but the deposits had become erratic, another subtle sign I'd tried to ignore. I'd survived the final weeks on my savings, telling myself there must be a reasonable explanation. "Welcome back, Ms. Reeves," said Carlo, our building's doorman, with genuine warmth. "Mr. Bryant didn't mention you were returning today." "It's a surprise," I explained, attempting a smile that felt stiff on my face. Carlo's expression flickered with something, hesitation, before he nodded. "He's hosting some gathering upstairs. Quite a few guests arrived earlier." "A party?" Logan hated entertaining at home. During our 3 years together, he'd always preferred restaurants or hotels for social events, claiming our penthouse was our sanctuary from the world. "I'm sure he'll be thrilled to see you," Carlo added, not quite meeting my eyes as he helped with my luggage. In the elevator, I examined my reflection in the mirrored walls. Travel had changed me subtly, my skin sun-kissed from Tuscan afternoons, my previously highlighted blonde hair now returned to its natural honey brown, my frame slightly leaner from daily walks through hilly Italian streets. I'd left as Logan's carefully curated trophy girlfriend. I was returning as someone else. My hand unconsciously drifted to my coat pocket, feeling the outline of the velvet ring box. The 5-carat diamond had felt impossibly heavy on my finger, and carrying it safely home had been my constant worry. Now something else weighed on me. As the elevator climbed to the penthouse level, muffled music and laughter grew more distinct. By the 38th floor, there was no denying the sound of a full-scale party in our home. The doors opened directly into our foyer and I momentarily froze. Our typically minimalist space had been transformed with elaborate floral arrangements, catering stations, and at least 50 people in cocktail attire mingling throughout the open-concept living area. I stepped out hesitantly, still clutching my carry-on, feeling absurdly underdressed in my travel clothes. Jeans, a wrinkled blouse, and comfortable flats. No one noticed me initially, which afforded me a moment to scan the crowd. That's when I saw him. Logan, breathtakingly handsome in a tailored navy suit I'd never seen before, gesturing animatedly to a captivated group. His golden boy confidence filled the room as it always had, the same charisma that had swept me off my feet at that charity gala 3 years ago. But it wasn't Logan who made my blood run cold. It was the woman beside him, willowy, elegant, with a cascade of dark hair and wearing a slinky black dress that probably cost more than my entire Italian wardrobe. Her hand rested possessively on Logan's arm as she laughed at whatever he was saying. Around her neck gleamed my grandmother's sapphire pendant, the Victorian heirloom Logan had given me on our 3rd anniversary, promising it symbolized our eternal bond. The necklace I'd left carefully stored in our bedroom safe before departing for Italy. I must have made some sound because Logan suddenly looked up, eyes connecting with mine across the room. For a split second, naked panic flashed across his face before he masterfully rearranged his features into a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He whispered something to the woman, who looked confused but nodded, Then Logan weaved through the crowd toward me with practiced grace. My heart hammered against my ribs as the distance between us closed, the ring box now burning like a hot coal in my pocket. Sophia. His voice carried just the right amount of casual surprise as he approached. What an unexpected delight. Before I could respond, he leaned in and pressed a cool kiss against my cheek. Not the passionate embrace of a fiancé reunited with his beloved, but the perfunctory greeting of acquaintances. Everyone, he called out, arms slipping around my shoulders in a gesture that felt more restraining than affectionate. This is Sophia Reeves, an old friend from Colombia. She's been traveling through Europe. How wonderful of you to stop by on your return. An old friend from Colombia. Not my fiancé. Not the woman I'm going to marry. The woman with my grandmother's necklace approached, extending a manicured hand. I'm Audrey Sinclair. Logan has mentioned you, so lovely to finally meet. Her smile was genuine. He didn't know. That realization hit me with stunning clarity as I mechanically shook her hand. She didn't know about me. But the real question burning through my numbed consciousness was, how long had Logan known about her? It's so wonderful to meet you too, I managed to say, my voice sounding distant to my own ears as I shook Audrey's hand. Her grip was warm and confident, her smile reaching eyes that held no trace of suspicion or animosity. Only polite interest. Logan's arm tightened around my shoulders. Sophia just completed an art history program in Florence, he explained smoothly. We've known each other for ages. Ages. As if our 3 years together, one as friends, two as lovers, the last 8 months engaged, could be condensed into such a casual dismissal. Art history? How fascinating. Audrey's enthusiasm seemed genuine. I've always wanted to study in Italy. Was it magical? Before I could answer, Logan cut in. Sophia must be exhausted from her flight. Let me get you a drink, he said, steering me toward the bar while throwing an apologetic smile at Audrey. We'll catch up properly in a minute, darling. Darling. The endearment he'd always reserved for me now directed at another woman with such natural ease. As we reached the bar, Logan's public smile vanished, replaced by tight-lipped urgency. What are you doing here? He hissed, maintaining a pleasant facade for anyone watching. You weren't supposed to be back for 2 more weeks. I stared at him, searching for any trace of the man I thought I knew. Clearly I should have stayed away longer. Given you more time to what? Replace me completely? It's complicated, Sophia. He ordered 2 champagnes from the bartender with a practiced smile. We need to talk privately, but now isn't the time. Isn't the time? I repeated incredulously. When exactly would be a good time to explain why another woman is wearing my grandmother's necklace? Or why you're introducing me as your college friend when 3 months ago you were calling me your future wife? Logan pressed the champagne flute into my hand. Lower your voice, he warned, his tone maintaining its public pleasantness while his eyes hardened. This is an important night. We'll sort everything out tomorrow. The memory of him fastening that necklace around my neck on our anniversary flooded back with painful clarity. This belonged to my great-grandmother, he'd said, his fingers warm against my skin. It should stay in the family, our family. I'd cried then, overwhelmed by the sentiment, the promise of permanence. Now, watching Audrey laugh across the room, the sapphires catching the light with each movement, I felt physically ill. Your timing is really unfortunate, Logan continued, scanning the room as if assessing damage control options. Marcus is bringing potential investors tonight. This could be the biggest deal of my career. I glanced toward his business partner, Marcus Donahue, deep in conversation with 2 older men in expensive suits. So that's what matters. Your deal. Don't start, Sophia. Logan's smile remained fixed while his voice hardened further. Look, things changed while you were gone. We both knew this wasn't really working anymore. We knew. The champagne in my glass trembled as my hand shook. No, Logan. I didn't know anything. I was planning our wedding while I was away. A tall, silver-haired man approached, clapping Logan on the shoulder. Bryant. There you are. Are you going to keep Audrey's big news to yourself all night, or what? Logan's expression froze for a microsecond before morphing into enthusiasm. Gerald. Just catching up with an old friend. The announcement's coming soon, don't worry. Gerald winked conspiratorially. Good man. My daughter's been impossible to live with keeping this secret. I never thought I'd see Audrey Sinclair settle down, but you've worked miracles. Daughter. Announcement. Settle down. Each word landed like a physical blow. If you'll excuse us, Logan said smoothly, I was just showing Sophia our view. She's an architecture enthusiast. He guided me forcefully toward the terrace doors. Once outside in the cool September air with the party noise partially muffled, Logan dropped all pretense. This wasn't how I wanted you to find out, he said, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. I was going to call you next week. To break our engagement over the phone? My voice sounded hollow. How considerate. It just happened, Sophia. Audrey and I reconnected at the Hamptons Charity Gala in July and things just clicked. You and I were already drifting apart. Because you sent me to another continent. The control I'd been maintaining cracked. You practically pushed me onto that plane. A couple stepped onto the terrace, cocktails in hand, then quickly retreated when they sensed the tension. Logan lowered his voice. That's not fair. The Italy trip was your dream. I was supportive. It was never my idea to go alone. I countered, memories flooding back. I wanted us to go together after the wedding. You're the one who suddenly insisted I needed independence before marriage. Logan checked his watch impatiently. Can we not do this right now? I need to get back inside. We're announcing our engagement in 20 minutes. The word engagement struck like lightning. You're engaged to her? Already. It's been 3 months, Sophia. He said it as if that were an eternity, not the blink of an eye in the lifetime we'd planned together. Audrey and I make sense. Her family's connections are combined resources. We're building something significant. I reached into my pocket, fingers closing around the velvet box. And what about this? Did you even plan to ask for it back? Or is a 5-carat diamond just pocket change now? Logan's eyes darted nervously to the door. Keep your voice down. Of course I was going to address that. Look, you can keep it if you want. Consider it compensation for any inconvenience. Inconvenience, I echoed, the word tasting bitter. Is that what you call 3 years of my life? Through the glass doors I could see Audrey looking around the room, clearly searching for Logan. The sapphires at her throat gleamed accusingly. I need to go, Logan said, straightening his tie. We'll talk tomorrow. I'll have my assistant call you. As he turned to leave, a strange calm descended over me. Logan, I called softly. He paused, turning back with obvious impatience. Your new fiancé is wearing my family heirloom. Logan's face paled slightly under his carefully maintained tan. It's just a necklace, Sophia. Don't make a scene. Just a necklace? I repeated, my voice steadier than I felt. My great-grandmother wore that sapphire when she fled Poland with nothing but the clothes on her back. My grandmother wore it at her wedding after surviving the Holocaust. My mother was buried with the matching earrings, and you gave me the pendant saying it would stay in our family. A flicker of genuine shame crossed his features before he masked it with irritation. Fine. I'll get it back from her tomorrow. Is that what you want? What I want? The question hung in the air between us, absurd in its simplicity. What did I want? 3 months ago the answer had been so clear. Logan, our life together, our future. Now I wanted something else entirely. Dignity. I squared my shoulders. What I want is to understand when exactly you decided to replace me. Was it before you put me on that plane, or did you wait until I was safely out of the country? Logan checked his watch again, agitation growing. Marcus is expecting me for the toast. We can hash this out tomorrow. No. The word came out stronger than either of us expected. We finish this now. He stepped closer, lowering his voice to a threatening whisper. Don't embarrass yourself, Sophia. These people are the elite of Manhattan. Make a scene and you'll never work in this city again. 3 months ago that threat would have terrified me. But Florence had changed me in ways Logan couldn't understand. I'd navigated foreign cities alone, made friends without connections, and found my voice in art circles that valued substance over status. I took a deliberate sip of champagne, then placed the glass carefully on the terrace ledge. I think your toast can wait 5 more minutes. Inside I could see Marcus glancing at his watch, Audrey accepting compliments on her necklace, my necklace, from admiring guests. I came back early to surprise you, I said, each word measured and calm. I spent the last of my savings on a rush flight because I missed you so desperately. I have sketches of wedding venues in Tuscany in my suitcase. Something like guilt flickered in Logan's eyes, quickly replaced by cold calculation. Look, things change. People change. We weren't right for each other. You must have felt it too. What I felt, I said, was abandoned. Your messages got shorter. Money transfers came late. But like a fool, I assumed you were just busy with work. I was busy, he insisted. Building our future. Then things shifted and you found someone more useful, I finished for him. Someone with better connections than a middle-class art historian. Someone whose father is. I glanced through the glass doors at Gerald, recognizing him suddenly. Gerald Sinclair. The venture capitalist. How convenient. Logan's jaw tightened. That's unfair. Audrey and I have a genuine connection. Built on what? The foundation of lies you told her about me? Or the lies you told me about working late when you were actually with her? A waiter appeared at the terrace door. Mr. Bryant? Mr. Donahue says they're ready for the announcement. Logan gave a terse nod. I'll be right there. Once the waiter left, he turned back to me. This conversation is over. I'm sorry it ended this way, but creating a public spectacle won't change anything. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the ring box, its velvet surface soft against my palm. For months, this ring had symbolized my future. Our future. Now it represented nothing but false promises. You're right, I said quietly. A scene won't change anything. But the truth might. Before he could respond, I walked past him through the terrace doors, ring box clutched tightly in my hand. The confidence in my stride belied the earthquake happening inside me. Marcus was tapping a spoon against his glass as Logan hurried in behind me, his face a mask of controlled panic. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus announced, if I could have your attention for a special moment. Audrey moved toward the center of the room, her face glowing with happiness, the sapphire at her throat catching the light. Logan reached her side, placing a possessive hand on her lower back while shooting me a warning glare. Before my partner shares his big news, Marcus continued, I'd like to thank you all for coming to celebrate. Excuse me, I said, my voice clear and carrying across the suddenly quiet room. 50 pairs of eyes turned toward me, including Audrey's curious gaze and Logan's horrified one. Marcus paused, confusion evident on his face. Yes. I smiled apologetically. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I think there's been a misunderstanding I need to clear up before any announcements are made. Logan stepped forward. Sophia, this isn't the time. Actually, it's exactly the time, I replied, then addressed the room. My name is Sophia Reeves, and contrary to what some of you were told, I'm not just Logan's old college friend. A murmur spread through the crowd. Audrey's perfect eyebrows drew together in confusion. Until about 20 minutes ago, I continued, my voice remarkably steady, I was under the impression that I was Logan Bryant's fiancée. The room fell into stunned silence. Audrey's hand flew to her throat, to my necklace, her eyes darting between Logan and me with dawning horror. That's ridiculous, Logan attempted, forcing a laugh. Sophia and I dated briefly years ago. She's clearly confused. I opened the ring box, the 5-carat diamond catching the light, silencing his protest more effectively than any words could have. This is the ring you gave me 8 months ago, I said, addressing Logan directly now. The one you told me belonged to your grandmother, symbolizing forever love. I've carried it across an ocean to return it to you. Audrey took a step away from Logan, her face draining of color. Logan? What is she talking about? Gerald Sinclair moved protectively toward his daughter, his expression thunderous. I closed the ring box with a decisive snap. I believe the announcement you were about to make might need to be reconsidered. The aftermath was exactly what you'd expect when a man's perfectly constructed lies implode in front of Manhattan's elite. Audrey's dignified exit, after removing my grandmother's necklace and placing it on the nearest table, was followed by her father's much less dignified threats to destroy Logan professionally. Guests began streaming toward the elevators, phones already out, undoubtedly spreading the scandal through social circles before they even reached the lobby. I stood frozen in the middle of it all, the emptied ring box clutched in my hand like some absurd souvenir, watching 3 years of my life disintegrate around me. Logan was simultaneously trying to pacify Gerald, call after Audrey and shoot murderous glares in my direction. Marcus approached me, his expression unreadable. You should probably go, he said quietly. Logan doesn't handle humiliation well. That was the understatement of the year. I nodded mechanically, retrieved my carry-on from where I'd abandoned it by the foyer, and picked up my grandmother's necklace with trembling fingers. As the last guests filtered out, I slipped into a waiting elevator, the doors closing on the wreckage I'd left behind. In the lobby, I stood disoriented, suddenly realizing I had nowhere to go. Our penthouse had been my home for the past 2 years. My old apartment had long since been rented to someone else. My closest friends were all connected to Logan in some way, and I couldn't bear the thought of explaining what had just happened. Hotels in Manhattan were prohibitively expensive, and my bank account was nearly empty after the rushed flight home. Ms. Reeves. Carlo approached cautiously. Are you all right? Do you need me to call someone? Before I could answer, a woman's voice called from across the lobby. Sophia. Wait. I turned to see a tall, striking woman with close-cropped silver hair hurrying toward me. It took me a moment to place her. She'd been in the bathroom earlier when I ducked in to collect myself, offering a tissue and a sympathetic smile without questions. I'm Elena, she said, slightly breathless. Elena Donahue. Marcus's sister. My stomach dropped. More of Logan's circle. Look, if you're here to offer you a place to stay, she finished firmly. What just happened up there was... She shook her head, searching for words. Let's just say it's been a long time coming. I stared at her, trying to process this unexpected offer. Why would you help me? Elena glanced toward the elevators. Because my brother has been worried about Logan's ethics for months, and because what he did to you was unconscionable. She extended a hand. Come on. My car's outside and I make a decent martini. You look like you could use one. Perhaps it was the shock or sheer exhaustion or simply having no better options, but I found myself following Elena into her waiting town car. I've been working in London for the past year, she explained as we pulled away from the curb. Just moved back last month. Marcus mentioned Logan's new girlfriend, but the timeline seemed suspicious. Did Marcus know about me? I asked, staring out at the city lights blurring through my tears. Elena hesitated. He knew Logan was engaged. I don't think he realized that relationship had never properly ended. We rode in silence through Midtown, until Elena's driver turned onto a tree-lined street in the West Village. Her brownstone was warm and eclectic, art-filled walls, mismatched antique furniture and towering bookshelves. Nothing like Logan's sleek, impersonal aesthetic that I'd always struggled to feel at home in. True to her word, Elena made martinis while I sank into a velvet armchair, my body finally registering the full extent of my exhaustion, jet lag compounded by emotional trauma. So, Elena said, handing me a glass, when did you get back exactly? About 3 hours ago, I replied, taking a grateful sip. I thought I was coming home. Turns out I don't have one anymore. Elena's expression softened. Logan told everyone you'd broken up with him while in Italy. Found yourself a charming Italian artist or something equally cliché. I laughed bitterly. Of course he did. No, I was faithfully planning our future while he was. I couldn't finish the sentence. While he was pursuing Audrey Sinclair for her father's investment in their new venture, Elena completed flatly. Gerald Sinclair has been reluctant to back their expansion. Logan probably saw Audrey as his way in. And what a coincidence that she appeared right after I conveniently left the country, I murmured. Elena studied me over her glass. Was it really your idea to go abroad? The question hit me like a slap. I'd been turning the same thought over in my mind since the moment I saw Audrey wearing my necklace. No, I admitted quietly. Logan insisted. Said it would be my last chance to find myself, before becoming a wife. How considerate of him, Elena remarked dryly. My phone buzzed with an incoming text. Logan, you've made a complete fool of yourself. Don't contact me again. Your things will be in storage by tomorrow. Another quickly followed, and don't think about talking to the press. Remember who has friends at every publication in this city. Elena noticed my expression. Let me guess. Logan's damage control has begun? I showed her the messages and she shook her head in disgust. Charming as ever. I don't understand how I could have been so blind, I said, draining my martini. 3 years and I never saw this side of him. Manipulators are skilled at hiding their true nature, Elena said gently. And Logan Bryant is exceptionally good at presenting exactly the persona most useful to him at any given moment. My phone buzzed again. This time, a notification from my bank. A large withdrawal had just been processed from our joint account, nearly emptying it. He's cutting me off financially, I said, a new wave of panic rising. I have maybe a few $100s left in my personal account. My name's not on the lease. My career contacts are all through him. The magnitude of my situation began to sink in. Hey, Elena said firmly, refilling my glass. One crisis at a time. You have a roof tonight and tomorrow we'll figure out the rest. She hesitated. Actually, a friend of mine might be able to help with the financial stuff. He's a lawyer who specializes in cases like yours. I can't afford a lawyer, I said miserably. Damien owes me several favors, Elena replied with a small smile. And trust me, he'd be very interested in your situation. I looked up confused. Why? Elena pulled out her phone and showed me a news article from 6 months ago. Financial watchdog group investigating Bryant Donahue Ventures. My brother Marcus has been trying to extricate himself from their partnership for months, she explained. He suspects Logan has been engaged in some questionable practices. Damien has been helping Marcus gather evidence. I stared at the article, my exhaustion momentarily forgotten. Are you saying Logan is involved in something illegal? I'm saying, Elena replied carefully, that Damien Chin might be very interested in talking to someone who had intimate access to Logan Bryant's life and possibly his business dealings. As this new reality settled over me, I remembered with a jolt. The documents. Dozens of papers Logan had asked me to sign as a formality before my trip. I'd been so distracted with packing and planning that I'd barely glanced at them. I think, I said slowly, I might have more to offer your friend Damien than just information about Logan's character. Elena's living room transformed into an impromptu war room by mid-morning. Damien Chin arrived with a leather messenger bag and enough legal pads to wallpaper the brownstone. Slender, with rectangular glasses and meticulously rolled shirt sleeves, he radiated a quiet competence that immediately put me at ease. So you're the fiancé, he said, shaking my hand firmly. Logan Bryant has mentioned you exactly 0 times in our interactions. Ex-fiancé, I corrected. And apparently I never existed according to the narrative he's been spinning. Damien smiled thinly. Convenient erasure is one of Bryant's specialties. I've been tracking his business maneuvers for the better part of a year. He spread several documents across Elena's coffee table. Bryant Donahue Ventures started as a legitimate luxury goods import business. But about 18 months ago their revenue patterns shifted dramatically. Marcus noticed discrepancies but couldn't pinpoint the source. 18 months ago. I remembered Logan's sudden influx of cash, the extravagant gifts, the upgraded penthouse. At the time I'd attributed it to the business finally taking off. What kind of discrepancies? I asked. Large cash deposits untraceable to their known clients. Inventory that doesn't match declared imports. And a curious pattern of consulting fees to shell companies in the Cayman Islands. Elena returned from the kitchen with coffee. Marcus tried confronting Logan but he kept getting stonewalled. That's when he reached out to Damien. We suspect Bryant has been using the legitimate business as cover for something less than legal, Damien continued. Marcus has been gathering evidence while looking for a way out that won't implicate him in whatever Logan's involved in. My head spun as I tried to process this new information. And you think I might know something? You lived with him, Damien pointed out. Had access to his home office, possibly saw documents, overheard conversations. And more importantly, he paused meaningfully. The papers I signed, I finished, the weight of realization settling in my stomach. Before I left for Italy, Logan had me sign dozens of documents. Said they were routine business formalities while I'd be out of the country. Damien leaned forward, suddenly intent. Do you remember what they were? I shook my head. I was preoccupied with planning my trip. He just flipped through, showing me where to sign. Authorizations for our joint accounts, power of attorney for emergencies while I was abroad. At least that's what he said they were. Do you have copies? No, but... I hesitated, a memory surfacing. I scanned some of them to my cloud account. I wanted to review them later, but with the chaos of traveling I never did. Elena handed me her laptop and I logged into my cloud storage. There, in a folder labeled Pre-Italy Paperwork, sat a dozen PDFs. Damien moved beside me as I opened the first document. His sharp intake of breath confirmed my growing dread. "This isn't a bank authorization," he said quietly. "You've been named as a director in a series of offshore companies. These signatures make you personally liable for their activities." The room seemed to tilt sideways. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means," Damien said grimly, "that if these companies are engaging in anything illegal, you could be implicated. Your signature is all over these papers." "But I didn't know what I was signing." "That would be your defense, yes. But Bryant has created a paper trail that makes you look complicit." I scrolled through more documents, each worse than the last. One transferred my small inheritance from my mother into an investment account I'd never heard of. Another granted Logan full signatory power over accounts in my name. "He's been setting me up as his fall person," I whispered. "If anything went wrong, you'd be the one legally exposed," Damien confirmed, while he maintained plausible deniability. Elena placed a steadying hand on my shoulder. "This explains why he was so insistent you go abroad. He needed you out of the way while he established this framework." My mind raced back to the weeks before my departure. Logan's sudden interest in handling all our finances, his insistence that I take a complete break, while in Italy, the way he discouraged me from discussing the trip with mutual friends. He orchestrated everything, I realized aloud. The trip wasn't about me finding myself before marriage. He was creating distance to replace me with Audrey while setting me up to take the fall for whatever he's involved in. Damien was examining another document. "Your signature appears on import manifests for Bryant Donahue as well. Have you ever signed anything related to their shipments?" "Never. I had nothing to do with the business side." "Well, according to these papers, you personally verified the contents of at least 6 shipping containers from Italy in the past 2 months." The room fell silent as implications sank in. "The Milan trip," I said finally. Elena looked confused, so I explained. "Last month I thought I glimpsed Logan in Florence. I convinced myself I was mistaken because he never mentioned traveling to Italy. But what if he did come to Italy, not to see me but to arrange whatever's in those shipments?" Damien was already typing furiously. "Customs records show Bryant made 3 trips to Italy during your time abroad. None of them to Florence, all to Milan. 1. The fashion capital of Italy. The center of luxury goods. The perfect cover for whatever Logan was really importing. Is my old laptop still at the penthouse?" I asked suddenly. "I used it for my photography, but I also did some basic accounting for our household on it. Logan always used my login for ordered deliveries because his business accounts had too many security protocols." Elena and Damien exchanged glances. "If we could access that computer," Damien said carefully, "it might provide valuable evidence regarding his activities using your credentials." "But how? Logan's changing the locks and I can't exactly walk back in there." Elena's smile turned slightly mischievous. "Actually, I think that's exactly what you're going to do." "Absolutely not," Damien protested once Elena outlined her plan. "We can't send Sophia back into that penthouse. Bryant is volatile, especially now that she's humiliated him publicly." "I'll go with her," Elena countered. "Carlo will let us up, he's known Sophia for years. We'll be in and out in 20 minutes. I stared at the sapphire necklace now resting on Elena's side table, its blue stones catching the morning light. My great-grandmother had smuggled it past border guards during war. Perhaps a little courage ran in my blood after all. "I'll do it," I said, interrupting their debate. "That laptop might be my only leverage." 3 hours later, dressed in clothes borrowed from Elena and with my hair pulled back in a severe bun, I approached our building with feigned confidence. Elena walked beside me, playing the role of supportive friend helping to collect my belongings. "Ms. Reeves." Carlo's eyes widened when he saw me. "Mr. Bryant said you wouldn't be returning." "I'm just collecting my personal items," I replied smoothly. "Elena is helping me move." Carlo hesitated, glancing at his security protocol tablet. "Mr. Bryant instructed." "Carlo," I cut in gently, "I lived here for 2 years. My name is still on the guest register. I'm only taking what's legally mine." Something in my calm determination must have convinced him. With a discreet nod, he ushered us toward the elevator. Mr. Bryant left about an hour ago with Mr. Donahue, he mentioned quietly. They seemed tense. The penthouse was eerily quiet when we entered. Evidence of last night's party had been meticulously erased, no doubt by the cleaning service Logan employed. We need to hurry, Elena whispered. Where's the laptop? Home office, I replied, leading her down the hallway. The office door was locked, unusual as Logan typically left it open when he was out. I tried my key but the lock had been changed. He's hiding something, Elena murmured. Can you pick it? I smiled despite our predicament. One of the benefits of spending 3 months with Florentine art restorers, you learn some interesting skills. Using hairpins from my borrowed updo, I manipulated the lock with techniques learned from Lucia's brother, who restored antique furniture with original locks. After a tense minute, the door swung open. Logan's office looked different. Files scattered across his usually immaculate desk, an open suitcase in the corner. The built-in shelving unit that normally displayed his awards had been partially emptied. He's planning to run, Elena said, voicing my thoughts. My laptop sat on the credenza, but when I opened it, the screen remained black. The battery's dead, I groaned. Check the drawers for the power cord, Elena suggested, already rifling through files on Logan's desk. I found the cord in the bottom drawer along with something unexpected, a small velvet pouch. Inside was my mother's sapphire ring, the mate to the necklace I'd recovered last night. I thought it had been buried with her, but apparently Logan had taken that too. As the laptop booted up, Elena made a discovery of her own. Sophia, look at this. She held up shipping manifests, the same ones Damien had shown me with my forged signature. But these copies had Logan's original signature, crudely whited out and replaced with a scanned version of mine. Got him, I whispered, snapping photos with my phone. My laptop finally loaded, revealing dozens of emails Logan had sent using my account. Messages to customs officials, verification of shipments, even communications with art dealers I'd never met. He's been busy, Elena muttered, photographing the screen. We need to download everything. I inserted a flash drive and began copying files while Elena continued searching the office. The download was at 85% when the elevator pinged in the foyer. We froze, exchanging panicked glances. The ding meant someone with a key had arrived. Likely Logan. Hide, Elena mouthed, slipping behind the door. I didn't have time to move before Logan's voice carried down the hallway. Don't care what Marcus thinks. We're accelerating the timeline. Tonight. A deeper voice responded, someone I didn't recognize. The buyers are expecting next week. They won't be ready. That's their problem. After last night's fiasco, we need to offload everything and disappear. The laptop chimed softly, signaling the completed download. I yanked out the flash drive and silenced the computer, but it was too late. Footsteps paused, then approached the office. Someone's here, Logan said sharply. I looked frantically around the room, spotting the small bathroom attached to the office. I slipped inside just as the office door swung wider. Strange, Logan muttered. I locked this. Through the crack in the bathroom door I could see him, disheveled, eyes bloodshot, nothing like the polished man from last night. Beside him stood a broad-shouldered man I'd never seen before. Check the place, Logan ordered. If someone's been here. The man nodded and left. Logan moved to his desk, rifling through papers. When he turned toward my laptop, my heart nearly stopped. Damn it, he hissed, seeing it powered on. Someone's been accessing files. He began typing frantically, checking folders. I clutched the flash drive in my sweating palm, praying he wouldn't check the bathroom. The man returned. Place is clear. Fire escape too. Logan ran a hand through his hair. Pack everything essential. Documents, backup drives, the merchandise from the Milan shipment. We're leaving in 30 minutes. What about the girl? The man asked. Your ex? If she's talking to authorities. Logan's laugh was cold. Sophia? She's nobody. A convenient signature. By the time anyone connects the dots, we'll be unreachable. A new voice suddenly joined the conversation. I wouldn't count on that, Bryant. Elena stepped out from behind the door, her phone visibly recording. Fascinating business model you've got. I wonder what Audrey's father would think about it. Logan's face contorted with fury. Elena Donahue. Always sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. Runs in the family, she replied coolly. Marcus has been documenting your activities for months. The other man stepped toward Elena menacingly, but Logan held up a hand. Wait. His smile turned calculating. Elena, always the crusader. What exactly do you think you know? Enough to ensure you'll never work in this city again, she replied. And enough to clear Sophia's name when this all comes crashing down. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from an unknown number. In position. Create distraction now. I had no idea what it meant, but in that moment I made a split-second decision. I flushed the toilet. All eyes turned toward the bathroom as I stepped out, chin raised. Hello, Logan. Fancy meeting you here. Logan's face cycled through shock, confusion, and rage in rapid succession. He spat. How did you get in here? I still live here, remember? I kept my voice steady despite my racing heart. At least according to all those documents you had me sign. His eyes darted to my closed fist. What are you holding? Before I could answer, the elevator pinged again. Logan and his associate exchanged alarmed glances. That'll be the authorities, Elena said calmly, though I could tell she was bluffing. Anonymous tip about counterfeit merchandise. Interesting timing, isn't it? Logan lunged toward his desk drawer. Reaching, I realized with horror, for what was likely a gun. His associate moved to block the hallway. In that critical moment, the penthouse door burst open. But instead of police, a familiar figure strode in, tall, impeccably dressed, with an air of quiet authority. Alessandro. I gasped. The Italian art expert I'd befriended in Florence smiled briefly in my direction before turning cold eyes toward Logan. Mr. Bryant. We meet at last. Logan's hand froze midway to the drawer. Who the hell are you? Alessandro Ricci, Interpol Art Crimes Division, he replied, producing credentials with practiced ease. We've been tracking your operation since the first shipment of forgeries left Milan. More footsteps sounded in the hallway as two plainclothes officers appeared behind Alessandro. Logan's associate immediately raised his hands, recognizing the futility of resistance. Logan, however, wasn't surrendering. This is absurd. I run a legitimate import business. A legitimate business that happens to import forged antiquities and counterfeit luxury goods, Alessandro corrected. Using Ms. Reeves' signature to clear customs. I stepped forward, flash drive extended. Everything's here. Emails, shipping manifests, financial records. All accessed through my accounts but sent by Logan. Alessandro nodded to one of his colleagues who took the drive. Ms. Reeves has been cooperating with our investigation. Her statement about being manipulated into signing documents without knowledge of their contents aligns with evidence we've gathered independently. Logan's face contorted with disbelief. You've been working with Interpol? Since when? Since she recognized a supposedly rare Etruscan vase in your September shipment, Alessandro explained. The same vase she had watched being fabricated in a Florentine workshop during her art history program. She contacted our Cultural Heritage Division immediately. My mind flashed back to that moment, stumbling across photos of recent acquisitions on Logan's cloud account that I still had access to. Seeing the distinctive vase I'd watched Lucia's father create as a reproduction for museums, explicitly marked as not for sale. The sick feeling when I realized what Logan was really importing. That's why I came back early, I admitted, watching Logan's face drain of color. Not because I missed you, but because I needed to confirm my suspicions. Elena looked at me with newfound respect. You knew all along? Not everything. Just enough to be suspicious. When I contacted the Italian authorities, they connected me with Alessandro. Logan's carefully constructed facade finally cracked. This is entrapment. She was involved from the beginning. We're partners in the business. Check the paperwork. Forged paperwork, Damien Chin announced, appearing in the doorway with Marcus close behind. We have the originals with evidence of tampering. Ms. Reeves was never a willing participant in your operation. I watched as handcuffs were placed on Logan's wrists, the final vestiges of his charm replaced by ugly desperation. The man who had controlled every aspect of my life for 3 years now looked pathetically small. You'll regret this, he hissed as officers led him toward the elevator. You're nothing without me, Sophia. No connections, no career, nothing. I stepped close to him, my voice pitched for his ears alone. I spent 3 months building a life without you, Logan. Turns out I'm pretty good at it. As the elevator doors closed on Logan's furious face, I felt a strange lightness, as if a weight I'd carried for years had finally been lifted. Damien approached with an evidence bag for my laptop. Your instincts were right. Bryant was using a complex network of shell companies to move counterfeit luxury goods and black market artifacts. The legitimate shipments were just cover. And I was the perfect patsy, I said, still processing everything. Out of the country, easily manipulated, with no business expertise to question his actions. Alessandro squeezed my shoulder gently. You showed remarkable courage, Sophia. When you contacted our Florence office, we had suspicions about Bryant Donahue's imports but lacked concrete evidence. We've been building a case for months, Marcus added, looking both relieved and exhausted. I suspected Logan was using the business for something illegal, but I couldn't prove it. When you returned and caused that scene at the party, it accelerated his plans. Which made him sloppy, Damien concluded. The best criminals are patient. When you threatened his new relationship with Audrey and her father's investment, he panicked. Elena laughed softly. Who knew your terrible timing would be his undoing? As police technicians processed the penthouse for evidence, I wandered to the floor-to-ceiling windows that had once made me feel on top of the world. The Manhattan skyline stretched before me, unchanged yet somehow entirely different from the view I'd left behind 3 months ago. What happens now? I asked, more to myself than anyone in particular. Legally. Damien approached, organizing papers into his briefcase. Bryant faces multiple federal charges: fraud, money laundering, trafficking in counterfeit goods, customs violations. With the evidence we've gathered, he'll likely take a plea deal. But I meant for me, I clarified. I have no home, no money, no job prospects that aren't connected to Logan. You have options, Alessandro said. The Uffizi Gallery was impressed by your research during your program. They've expressed interest in bringing you on as a consultant for their authentication department. I turned in surprise. You're offering me a job? In Florence. He smiled. You have a genuine talent for spotting forgeries, Sophia. And your experience with Bryant's operation gives you unique insight. Plus, Marcus added, as the whistleblower in this case, you're entitled to a percentage of any assets recovered. Bryant may have drained your joint accounts, but he won't keep what he stole. My mind reeled with possibilities. A fresh start in Florence, financial independence, work I was genuinely passionate about. Freedom from Logan's influence and the life he had constructed to keep me dependent. I'd like that, I said finally. A chance to rebuild on my own terms. As the investigators finished their work, I made one final circuit of the penthouse, not to collect belongings, but to say goodbye to the person I'd been while living there. The woman who had shrunk herself to fit Logan's expectations, who had ignored red flags and sacrificed her ambitions for his convenience. In the bedroom, I opened my jewelry box and retrieved the sapphire necklace and ring, the only pieces that truly mattered. My family's legacy, now freed from Logan's manipulation just as I was. Ready? Elena asked from the doorway. I nodded, closing the door without a backward glance. More than ready. 6 months after Logan Bryant's arrest, I stood on the balcony of my small Florentine apartment, watching golden sunlight wash over the terracotta rooftops. The Arno River glinted in the distance, a ribbon of light winding through the ancient city that had unexpectedly become my home. My phone chimed with a news alert, the final sentencing in Logan's case. 15 years for fraud, money laundering, and trafficking in counterfeit antiquities. His empire had collapsed spectacularly, revealing a criminal network spanning 3 continents. Marcus had been cleared of wrongdoing, having documented his suspicions and cooperation with authorities from the beginning. 15 years, I murmured to myself. Not enough time to erase the damage, but enough to start healing. A gentle knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Elena entered, carrying a bottle of Prosecco and wearing the satisfied smile that had become her signature since taking over as creative director at the restructured, legitimate Bryant Donahue Ventures, now simply Donahue Design. I saw the news, she said, pouring 2 glasses. How does it feel? I accepted the bubbling wine, considering her question. Like closing a book I never should have started reading. To endings and beginnings, Elena toasted, clinking her glass against mine. And to unexpected friendships, I added. In the chaos following Logan's arrest, Elena had become my anchor. When she decided to split her time between New York and Florence to help rebuild the company's European connections, our friendship had deepened into something like sisterhood. My apartment door opened again as Damien arrived, laptop tucked under his arm as always. Sorry I'm late. Was finalizing the paperwork for your foundation. The Reeves Authentication Initiative had been my idea, using my share of the recovered assets to fund education for art history students specializing in authentication and provenance research. Already, we'd provided scholarships to 3 promising candidates who otherwise couldn't afford specialized training. So it's official? I asked, excitement bubbling through me. Completely legal, fully funded, and ready to accept applications for next fall's cohort, Damien confirmed, accepting the glass Elena handed him. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Alessandro, checking in from Interpol headquarters in Lyon. I put him on speaker so everyone could hear. The Uffizi director is singing your praises again, he reported. The authentication techniques you proposed have already identified 2 questionable pieces in their collection. I laughed. Tell him flattery won't get him a discount on my consulting fees. Alessandro's warm chuckle filtered through the speaker. He also mentioned extending your contract for another year. Interested? Absolutely, I replied without hesitation. The work was challenging and fulfilling in ways I'd never experienced at Logan's side, where my career had always been secondary, decorative rather than essential. After ending the call, I moved to my dresser and opened the small carved box that now housed my grandmother's sapphire necklace and my mother's matching ring. In the aftermath of Logan's arrest, I'd commissioned a local silversmith to create a delicate silver chain from which the engagement diamond now hung, transformed from a symbol of false promises into a reminder of my resilience. Wearing it tonight? Elena asked, watching me fasten the necklace. It feels appropriate, I replied. For the exhibition opening. My first major project at the Uffizi was debuting that evening. An exhibition on authentication techniques and famous forgeries throughout art history. The centerpiece was the very Etruscan vase that had triggered my suspicions about Logan's business. Damien glanced at his watch. We should head out soon. There's already press gathering. Press? I asked, alarmed. Despite my professional confidence, public attention still made me uneasy. Don't worry, Elena assured me. They're art journalists, not gossip columnists. No one cares about Logan Bryant anymore. It was true. The social circles that had once revolved around Logan had quickly distanced themselves after his arrest. Even Audrey Sinclair had rebounded spectacularly, channeling her embarrassment into founding an investment firm focused exclusively on women-owned businesses. As we walked through Florence's cobblestone streets toward the museum, I found myself reflecting on the strange twists of fate that had brought me here. The journey that began with heartbreak had led to genuine independence. Nervous? Damien asked, noticing my quietness. Grateful, I corrected. A year ago I was planning a wedding to a man who saw me as an accessory. Now I'm building something that matters. The Uffizi was illuminated against the twilight sky, its Renaissance facade glowing warmly. Inside, museum officials greeted me with respect I'd earned through expertise rather than association. My name on the exhibition materials, Sophia Reeves, Authentication Specialist, stood alone, requiring no man's reputation to validate it. As guests began arriving, I spotted a familiar face. Marcus, who had flown in specifically for the opening. Beside him stood Alessandro, looking distinctly non-professional in a tailored suit rather than his usual Interpol attire. Your exhibition is magnificent, Alessandro said, his accent still making my heart flutter slightly after all these months. Our relationship had evolved from professional to personal with careful deliberation on both sides. Neither of us willing to rush into anything after our respective experiences. We have news from New York, Marcus announced. Gerald Sinclair has purchased the remaining Bryant assets at auction. He's converting the penthouse into headquarters for Audrey's foundation. I smiled at the poetic justice. Good for her. A museum docent approached, informing me it was time for my introductory remarks. As I moved toward the podium, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in a display case. Confident, professional, entirely my own person. Distinguished guests, I began, my voice clear and steady. Welcome to Authentic Deceptions, the art of forgery and the science of authentication. This exhibition represents not just the culmination of academic research, but a personal journey of discovery. From the audience, Elena gave me an encouraging nod. Damien and Alessandro watched with quiet pride. None of them had known me in my previous life as Logan's carefully curated partner, and that felt like the greatest freedom of all. In both art and life, I continued, what appears authentic on the surface may conceal complex deceptions beneath. The critical eye must learn to distinguish genuine value from superficial imitation. As I guided the audience through the exhibition, explaining detection techniques and historical contexts, I realized I was no longer haunted by the woman who had returned Logan's ring 6 months ago. That version of Sophia, confused, heartbroken, betrayed, had served her purpose in my story. The exhibition ended with an interactive display where visitors could examine pairs of objects, one authentic, one forgery, and test their discernment. As I watched guests engaging enthusiastically with the exhibit, a late arrival slipped into the gallery. Ms. Reeves. A journalist extended her hand. I'm covering the exhibition for Art Monthly. May I ask what inspired your focus on authentication? I considered my answer carefully. Sometimes the most valuable expertise comes from unexpected sources. My journey began when I discovered something presumed authentic was actually a carefully constructed fake. Your previous fiancé's case? She pressed. Logan Bryant? There it was, the inevitable reference. The attempted reduction of my identity to Logan Bryant's ex-fiancé. I smiled politely but firmly. This is the last time I'll address that connection. My name is Sophia Reeves. I'm an authentication specialist with the Uffizi Gallery and founder of the Reeves Authentication Initiative. My work stands on its own merits, as do I. As the journalist nodded with newfound respect, I turned back to my exhibition, to the future I was building with my own 2 hands. Authenticated by expertise no one could counterfeit.